everyone, and welcome to our tutorial on adding a keyboard and piano track. So I'm here in my Soundtrap project, and I'm going to add a new track, piano and keyboards. And then we can see we have the instrument view here as well as the piano roll. So theoretically, you could learn to play chords on the computer keyboard, but that seems like a lot more trouble than it's worth. So I would recommend you work with the piano loops that we record in class to have a chord bank that you can use for your composition, or you can use the piano roll and just draw in chords. It's pretty simple to do. You just click on the note on the keyboard and you can edit the length, you can copy and paste, and we have a chord right there. Another handy thing is the transpose feature. So if I use the mouse and I select these, I can change the pitch to a different key. So I could just easily create a major chord in all 12 keys simply by changing the pitch of the MIDI data. So another route, if you happen to have a MIDI controller or an electric keyboard that has a MIDI out, actually a lot of modern electric keyboards just have a MIDI out as an option, you can connect that to Soundtrap as well. So that's actually what I've done. I'm going to go to settings, MIDI settings, and then I see I have a USB controller that when I play a key on the MIDI controller, I hear it in Soundtrap. Again, there is a little bit of latency, but once again, that's something we can adjust through quantization. So I'm going to go back, add that track again, and now when I play a note on the MIDI controller, it shows up on the Soundtrap project. So let's see, we can start with the grand piano sound and we can always edit it later. I'm going to turn this up a little bit just so I can hear. So now the next step is to figure out how my piano track is going to work with my bass and my drums that I've recorded here. So listen to this a little bit. My bass part's pretty busy, so I think I'm going to keep my piano part pretty simple to complement the notey bass line. So the first thing that I hear, and I will pull this up so we can see it. So the bass line is going. So we've got this F, E flat, D, and I hear an A flat major chord over that. And I think this is overall, this chord is going to be somewhat of a D half diminished. So I'm just going to simply play an A flat major triad in the keyboard part over top of that note. And I can do this one chord at a time, so I could simply hit record, get a count in, and just record that first chord. And I think that works. So I'm going to keep that, and I can see that what I've recorded is right there. Now, the next chord that I'm going to record comes in at measure 2. So I have this G to a C in the bass. So I think what I'm going to do is record a G minor to either a C minor or maybe a C minor 7, so I can keep my B flat there. So I'll pull up so I've set my cursor here at the second measure, and I can just record right on the second measure. It'll keep what I've recorded in the first measure and start recording on the second measure. So I'm going to open up this instrument just so we can all see. Move the cursor to measure 2 and record my G minor to C minor 7. So we can see how that sounds. Now we can hear one of my notes kind of stood out a little bit more than I intended it to. So if I double click on this, you can actually see the velocity of each note. Yeah, the E flat has a velocity of 100 compared to the other ones, which are much quieter. So we can actually even all these out by clicking on the V tool. And if 90, make them all 90. to emphasize certain chords, that might be the way to go. So I can make these, I'll make these close to 70. So you can make some chords louder than others, give it a little bit more of a human feel. I want evenness across the chord. So it almost created a bit of an accent. You can also see, I think I moved this around so they're not all the same. I can select all of these and quantize them to the 8th note. So now everything should be in time. So that, yeah, once again, you hear that C minor 7 kind of stand out a little bit. All right, so now let's record the second half. I can set my cursor right to measure 3. And I'm going to use the same chord here because it's the same bass line. We've got this in the bass. So I'm just going to copy and paste. On a Mac, you can click Option and click and drag, which is really useful. On Windows, that might be Control. So now we've got, once again, this G to a C, slightly different rhythm. So I'm going to go ahead and record that. All right. So let's quantize this. And again, we can go in and adjust the velocity to even it out. We could also cycle this and experiment with different sounds in the keyboard. I like this France duck bass best. Yep, so there we have it. That is creating a chord progression using the piano and keyboard track in Soundtrack.